Every year, Earth witnesses hundreds of tropical storms and cyclones. But in some places, storms aren't just weather events. They're destiny. Cities, oceans, and people living on the razor's edge between survival and catastrophe. In this video, we'll take you through 10 of the most extreme storm hotspots on the planet. Places where monster storms are a way of life, where nature doesn't knock, it breaks down the door. Buckle up, because this journey will take you straight through the heart of the most terrifying storms in human history. Number 10. North Carolina, USA. The sky may be calm in the morning, but in North Carolina that calm doesn't mean safety. Here, the state sits at a deadly crossroads, where warm, humid air from the Atlantic collides with frigid winds from the north. The perfect conditions for monster storms to be born, grow stronger, and charge inland like spinning blades of wind. Over the past century, North Carolina has endured more than 55 hurricanes, many of them carving long, painful scars into the state's history. Hurricane Florence was no ordinary storm. It was a monster, a seething, raging mass of air that dropped over 1,000 millimeters of rain in just a few days. Roads vanished beneath water. Bridges collapsed. Power systems were crippled. The city of Wilmington, a major urban hub, was completely cut off. Residents couldn't escape. Rescuers couldn't get in. It was a deluge, a true flood of biblical proportions. Florence killed 51 people, destroyed thousands of homes, and caused more than $22 billion in damage. It wasn't the wind that did the most damage. It was the water. Constant, unstoppable, with no way out. It drowned the eastern half of the state in carnage and devastation. Meteorologists say it's geography that seals North Carolina's fate. A long coastline facing the Atlantic, dotted with wide river inlets, acting like a funnel for storms making landfall. Add to that a flat, swampy landscape, and every heavy rain becomes a flood risk. And Florence wasn't the first. In '96, Hurricane Fran brought Category 3 winds that shredded forests and slammed into inland cities like Raleigh, over 150 kilometers from the coast. And further back, in 1954, Hurricane Hazel, one of the deadliest storms ever to hit the region, left behind a legacy of destruction still remembered today. Now every summer, North Carolina residents watch the weather forecast with quiet dread, not wondering if a hurricane will come, but when. Because here, storms aren't just weather. They're part of the collective memory, part of history, and part of a fear that never really leaves. Storms don't just pass through North Carolina, they leave permanent scars. Number 9, Texas, USA. Texas, where endless fields stretch beneath the southern sun, is also where some of the ocean's fiercest wrath comes crashing ashore. Every year, this state faces 1 to 2 major hurricanes on average. But not all storms are created equal. Because in Texas, when a hurricane hits, it doesn't just bring wind, it brings devastation. This is the land that witnessed Harvey, one of the most catastrophic monster storms in modern U.S. history. In August 2010, Harvey slammed into the Texas coast with violent winds. But what made it a nightmare wasn't the speed, it was the stillness. Harvey didn't move. For nearly a week, the storm stalled over Houston, unleashing a deluge like nothing the region had ever seen. Over 1,500 millimeters of rain. The city turned into a sea. Roads became rivers. Thousands of families were trapped. Hospitals, fire stations, emergency services, crippled, helpless, overwhelmed. Harvey claimed over 100 lives, damaged or destroyed more than 300,000 homes, and caused an estimated $125 billion in economic losses, second only to Hurricane Katrina. But Harvey wasn't alone. There was Alicia in 1983, Ike in 2008, and further back, Galveston, 1900, one of the deadliest disasters in American history, killing over 8,000 people. Scientists call Texas's coastline a death zone, a perfect convergence of Gulf moisture, inland heat, and violent convection. The result? Storms that form fast, hit hard, and push deep into the heart of the state. From Galveston to Corpus Christi, from coastal towns to the heart of Houston, no place is completely safe. Every summer, Texans prepare. Evacuation kits are packed. Storm warnings go out, and a silent fear settles over the coast. Because when Texas looks out to sea, they know it's not just wind on the horizon. It could be carnage forming, an ocean's fury, and yet another chapter of devastation waiting to be written. Number 8. Florida, USA. Florida, the peninsula of sunshine and paradise beaches, is also the first line of fire when the world's most powerful storms come charging in from the Atlantic. No state in the U.S. gets hit by hurricanes more often than Florida. On average, 1 to 3 major storms make landfall or cause serious damage here every single year. With over 1,300 kilometers of coastline and a humid tropical climate, Florida sits directly in the path of nearly every monster storm that rises out of the Caribbean or the mid-Atlantic. But what haunts Florida isn't just the strength of the storms, it's the repetition. Year after year, Floridians live under the shadow of warnings, evacuations, roaring winds, and rising floodwaters. They don't just know the names of hurricanes, they remember them syllable by syllable, like living memories. Andrew, 92, a Category 5 monster. In less than 4 hours, it obliterated Homestead. Over 63,000 homes were shredded. Power poles bent like twigs. Cars were flung into the air. A massive swath of South Florida was crippled. No power, no water, no communication. Andrew claimed 65 lives and caused over $27 billion in damage. A brutal reminder that in Florida, it's not just about enduring a storm. It's about surviving a cycle of destruction. But it didn't stop there. Irma, 2007. With hurricane-force winds stretching over 600 kilometers, Irma was one of the largest storms ever recorded in the Atlantic. When it tore through the Florida Keys and surged northward, it brought a relentless deluge, rendering levees, canals, and flood defenses utterly useless. Over 6 million people evacuated, the largest evacuation in Florida's history. Miami was overtaken by storm surge. Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, all were battered. It was a carnage painted across the map. Destruction not just from wind, but from flooding, panic, and system-wide collapse. Scientists warn that Florida lies at the intersection of 3 major hurricane zones: the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico. Here, it's not just the landfalling hurricanes, it's the chain reaction. Tropical depressions, storm surge, rising seas. Every June, when hurricane season begins, the people of Florida look toward the ocean with the eyes of survivors. They know nature here is both breathtaking and brutal. Because when the storms come, Florida isn't just hit. It's torn open, tested, and often left in ruins by a devastation the history books can never truly capture. Number 7. The Bay of Bengal. It may seem like a quiet sea in Southeast Asia, but the Bay of Bengal is home to some of the deadliest storms the planet has ever seen. Shaped like a massive funnel, this body of water amplifies every swirling wind into a monster storm, drawing it toward land with speed and fury beyond imagination. And this region has witnessed tragedies the world will never forget. In 1970, Cyclone Pola made landfall in what is now Bangladesh. Winds reached over 200 km/h. A massive storm surge, over 10 meters high, crashed into the Ganges Delta. In just a few hours, more than 300,000 lives were lost. Entire villages vanished, families were swept away. It wasn't just a storm, it was pure carnage. And heartbreakingly, it wasn't the last. In 1999, the Odisha supercyclone slammed into the eastern coast of India with winds peaking at 260 km/h. A massive deluge drowned the state of Odisha, killing nearly 10,000 people and leaving millions homeless. Cargo ships were tossed like toys. Communication, healthcare, and emergency systems were crippled. For 3 days, the world had no way to reach the disaster zone. Only silence. And a trail of devastation stretching for hundreds of kilometers. So what makes the Bay of Bengal so uniquely deadly? Meteorologists point to a lethal combination of 3 factors: extremely warm ocean waters, intensely humid air from the Andaman Sea, and low-lying, flood-prone terrain. The result? When storms form here, they intensify rapidly and strike some of the most densely populated coastlines on Earth, where millions live in fragile homes, often with nothing to protect them but hope. In recent years, both India and Bangladesh have developed advanced warning systems and evacuation protocols. But nature has not let up. Cyclone Amphan 2020, the first Category 5 cyclone in the region in over 2 decades. It killed hundreds, displaced millions, and caused $13 billion in damage. Mangrove forests in the Sundarbans were ripped apart. Roofs were torn off homes like paper. People waded through floodwaters filled with animal carcasses and debris. It was a brutal reminder of one unchanging truth. In the Bay of Bengal, storms aren't just disasters, they are destiny. And no matter how far science advances, these lands still live under the haunting question. Will we survive the next storm, or just become another name etched into the history of destruction? Number 6. Vietnam, the S-shaped battleground. Vietnam, a slender S-shaped land along the edge of the South China Sea, lies directly on the superhighway of tropical storms. Each year, especially in the central and northern regions, the country is struck by 10 to 12 tropical storms and depressions, with at least 4 to 6 major typhoons making direct landfall. This isn't a coincidence. From Thanh Hoa to Nghệ An, down to Thua Tien, Hue, people don't just live near the storms, they live inside them. The names Doksuri, Damri, Nari, Noru, they're not just memories. They are scars, etched into rooftops, roads, rice fields, and hearts. In 2006, Typhoon Chanchu was expected to head north, but it suddenly changed course. Hundreds of central Vietnamese fishing boats couldn't escape in time. 206 fishermen were lost to the sea. It was devastation without warning, and the entire nation stayed awake for days, clinging to hope that someone else might still be alive. Then came Doksuri in Twentent. With winds up to level 15, it slammed into Quang Binh and Ha Tin, tearing apart over 200,000 homes. Entire rural villages were flattened. The national power grid crippled. Radio towers and antennas snapped. Uprooted trees. A storm of carnage, right in the heart of the land. And no one has forgotten Noru in 22, one of the strongest storms to hit Vietnam in 2 decades. Central Vietnam once again drowned in a deluge. Hours of blinding rain. Raging rivers rising fast, flash floods, landslides, homes obliterated, cries for help in the night, capsized boats, children clinging to roof tiles, waiting for rescue. Vietnam is among the 5 countries most vulnerable to climate change, and it shows. Storm seasons are becoming more unpredictable, more extreme, more violent. According to meteorologists, the hot, humid seawaters off the East Sea, combined with the steep terrain of central Vietnam, from mountains to coast, create a phenomenon known as storm squeezing. As storms approach, winds accelerate and rains intensify rapidly. The result? Flooding begins even before the storm makes landfall. These storms don't just tear off roofs. They tear away livelihoods from millions of farmers and fishermen. But the most terrifying part, the speed. From the first warning to landfall, sometimes only a few dozen hours. Too fast to evacuate, too fast to prepare. And that's why in Vietnam, especially in the central region, people don't ask, will there be a storm this year? They ask, what will it leave behind? Or what will it take away this time? Because here, typhoon season isn't just about the weather. It's a cycle of survival, year after year, generation after generation. Number 5, Kyushu, Japan's southern front line. Kyushu, the 3rd largest island of Japan, is not just a cradle of ancient culture. It's also the country's first line of defense against Pacific storms. Located at the southern tip of Japan's main islands, Kyushu sits directly in the path of violent tropical systems from the East China Sea and the Northwest Pacific. Every year, 4 to 6 major typhoons either strike or seriously affect this region, making it the most storm-battered part of Japan. Here, no one is a stranger to typhoons, but some storms are unforgettable. Typhoon Nanmadol, 2022, a true monster storm. With wind speeds reaching 250 km/h, it barreled toward Kyushu with catastrophic force. The prefectures of Kagoshima, Miyazaki, and Kumamoto were drowned in a relentless deluge. Nearly 48 hours of non-stop rain. Landslides swept away roads, bridges collapsed, power poles snapped, entire towns were crippled. Nearly 10 million people received evacuation orders. Across the cities, carnage was everywhere. Homes in ruins, cars swept away like trash, rice fields swallowed by mud and floodwaters. But the scars go deeper, etched into Kyushu's past. In 2012, Typhoon Sanba, a rare Category 5 storm, ripped through Okinawa and then slammed into Kyushu with gusts exceeding 260 km/h. Parts of Nagasaki went days without power. Mountain towns like Oita and Kumamoto suffered devastating damage. Sanba was not just physical destruction. It shattered the illusion that humans could always outbuild nature. So what makes Kyushu so vulnerable, and yet always in the bullseye? The answer lies in geography. Kyushu sits at the collision point of three atmospheric forces: hot, humid air from the East China Sea, cold winds from the Asian continent, cyclonic flows from the Philippine Sea. When these energy systems collide, storms don't just form, they grow, intensify, and charge toward Kyushu like a colossal spear. Combine that with Kyushu's rugged terrain, dense forests, steep mountains, and fast-flowing rivers, and you get a recipe for dual disasters: landslides, flash floods, mudslides, urban drainage systems overwhelmed. Even in a country as advanced as Japan, where typhoon-proof infrastructure is world-class, nature always finds a way to break through. From June to October, when the storm season returns, people in Kyushu prepare not just their homes, they prepare their minds. Because here, the battle with wind, water, and devastation is never over. It always comes back. Number 4. Okinawa, Japan's typhoon front line. Okinawa, the tropical island chain at the southern tip of Japan, is known for its turquoise waters, white sand beaches, and vibrant coral reefs. But it's also the first line of defense when tropical cyclones roar out of the northwest Pacific. Sitting squarely on the typhoon highway, Okinawa is hit by 7 to 10 storms every year, including several Category 4 and 5 monster storms. No other place in Japan faces typhoons as often or as directly as Okinawa. Here, typhoons are not just weather events, they're a way of life. But even in a land familiar with storms, some battles are unforgettable. In 2012, Typhoon Bolavan, one of the strongest storms of the century, struck Okinawa with winds reaching 280 km/h. Trees were ripped from the ground like blades of grass. Steel rooftops torn off like paper. Even the U.S. military bases, fortified and long-standing, were crippled, forced to shut down for the first time in nearly 20 years. Roads collapsed. Waves towering over 10 meters smashed the coastline like a sledgehammer. Unlike other regions of Japan, Okinawa has no high mountains to block the wind, no inland buffer to soften the blow. When a typhoon arrives, the island is left exposed, taking the full force of the storm: wind, rain, and surge. Deluges last for hours, with over 600 millimeters of rainfall in just 24 hours, submerging coastal towns underwater. Here, storms don't just touch land, they swallow it. The people of Okinawa have a chilling name for their home: Asia's Typhoon Death Corridor. And that's not an exaggeration. In 2023, Super Typhoon Kanun struck Okinawa head-on. Despite advanced warning systems, hundreds of thousands were forced to evacuate. Over 220,000 households lost power for days in the stifling heat of summer. Emergency services were paralyzed. Cars were swept away. Roads turned into rivers. From above, Okinawa looked like an island drowning in the ocean's fury. Yet what defines Okinawa is not just its pain, but its preparation. Every home here is built like a fortress. Every family has a disaster bag ready. Local TV and radio stations stay live throughout typhoon season. Every school, every base, every block has a plan. People here don't resist the storm, they coexist with it. But the storms are changing. Smarter, stronger, more unpredictable. Climate change means they now arrive earlier, linger longer, and strike with growing intensity. And when names like Mawar, Kanun, or Haishin return, no one in Okinawa needs Google to remember. Because here, every storm leaves a scar. Not just on the land, but in the memories of an entire generation. Number 3. The Philippines, typhoon capital of the world. The Philippines, a breathtaking archipelago of over 7,600 islands, carries one of the most chilling nicknames on Earth, the typhoon capital of the world. Lying directly in the Northwest Pacific, the most active typhoon-generating region on the planet, the Philippines is struck by 20 to 25 tropical storms each year. At least 8 to 12 of those make direct landfall. No other place on Earth experiences storms this frequently or this violently. In the Philippines, people don't ask if a typhoon will come. They ask, how much destruction will it bring this time? The name Haiyan, or Yolanda as it's known locally, has become seared into global memory. In 2010, this Category 5 monster storm roared into the country with sustained winds of 315 km/h, making it the strongest landfalling typhoon ever recorded. Its first target? The coastal city of Tacloban, home to over 200,000 people. In just a few hours, Haiyan turned the city into a wasteland. A deluge drowned everything. Storm surges over 6 meters high, the height of a 2-story building, swept inland like a mini tsunami. Entire families were swept away. Children vanished. Bodies lined the streets. Power gone. Water gone. Communication gone. Tacloban was crippled completely. Over 6,300 lives were officially lost, with thousands still missing to this day. This wasn't just a storm. It was an act of atmospheric annihilation. And Haiyan was not an exception. In 2015, Typhoon Kopu unleashed 3 straight days of rain, triggering historic floods across Luzon. Typhoon Goni, in 2020, became the strongest storm on Earth that year, smashing into the country with 310 km/h winds. Typhoon Rai, in 2021, exploded into a Category 5 in just 36 hours, catching the normally storm-sheltered southern regions completely off guard. So why is the Philippines so vulnerable? The danger lies not only in its location, but also in its terrain and population density. Most major cities sit near the coastline. Mangrove forests, natural buffers against storm surge, are rapidly disappearing. Weak infrastructure, high poverty, and climate change turn every typhoon into a potential humanitarian disaster. Meteorologists say, the Philippines isn't just where storms pass through. It's where storms are born. The surrounding seas stay hot all year. Moisture is abundant. Northeast and southwest monsoon winds collide, forming gigantic cyclonic systems. And sometimes, in less than 48 hours, a weak disturbance becomes a Category 5 beast and barrels straight into land. For Filipinos, each typhoon season is a fight for survival. Evacuating, reinforcing homes, stockpiling food, praying. But no amount of preparation is ever enough, because typhoons here don't just tear off roofs, they rip away the future. Number 2. Southeastern China. The front line of East Asia's storms. Southeastern China, stretching from Guangdong through Fujian down to Hainan, has stood in the path of Asia's most violent typhoons for centuries. On average, 5 to 7 tropical cyclones make direct landfall here every year, while dozens more brush past, unleashing widespread damage. This densely populated, rapidly urbanizing coastline isn't just exposed, it is the front line. Say the name Mangkhut and the people of Guangdong still remember. In 2010, this Category 5 monster storm, once named the strongest typhoon on Earth that year, slammed into southern China after tearing through the Philippines. It hit with sustained winds of 250 km/h, and it didn't knock politely. It ripped everything in its way. Bridges collapsed. Skyscrapers trembled. Shattered glass rained down like knives. The metro system was crippled. Floodwaters surged into underground stations like an unstoppable deluge. In Zhanjiang, entire neighborhoods turned into carnage zones. Rooftops ripped off. Street signs shredded. Power lines twisted like wire from a war zone. But Mangkhut was only the beginning. In 2023, Typhoon Sayola, a rapidly intensifying super typhoon, doubled in strength in under 48 hours before smashing into Guangdong with record-breaking rainfall, over 800 millimeters in just 24 hours. The tech city of Shenzhen drowned beneath a sea of floodwater. Highways were blocked. Over 880,000 people evacuated in a matter of hours. This wasn't just a storm. It was a flood of the century. What makes typhoons in China so destructive isn't just their wind. It's the deadly mix of subtropical climate, warm coastal waters, and a vast, interwoven river system. When storms unleash heavy rain, they don't just trigger wind damage. They overflow rivers, break levees, and cause landslides, even hundreds of kilometers inland. And now climate change is making it worse. Longer storm seasons, stronger landfalls, more destruction. Chinese meteorologists report that in the last 30 years, the number of intense typhoons hitting Guangdong and Fujian has nearly doubled. Yet China is also home to one of the most massive storm response systems in the world. Its national warning network can evacuate millions within hours. Levees, reservoirs, and emergency routes are pre-planned for the worst-case scenarios. But even with this massive infrastructure, nature always finds the cracks. A typhoon doesn't have to go far inland to destroy. Sometimes just a few hours on the coast is enough to rip through one of the world's most important economic regions. Number 1. Not a country, but an ocean. The most dangerous waters on Earth. The Northwest Pacific. And at number 1, it's not a nation. It's not a coastline, it's an entire ocean. A vast, volatile region where storms are not only born, they evolve into monsters. Welcome to the Northwest Pacific, the most dangerous storm zone on the planet. Every year, over 1/3 of the world's tropical cyclones are born here. On average, 25 to 30 typhoons form in this region annually, with at least 8 to 10 reaching super typhoon status, packing sustained winds over 240 km/h. From above, it looks like a peaceful blue canvas, but beneath the surface lies a massive storm-making engine, where warm waters, moisture-rich air, and converging winds create the perfect breeding ground for monster storms with swirling cloud walls and crushing low pressure at the core. The countries surrounding this deadly arena: Japan, the Philippines, China, Taiwan, South Korea, even Vietnam. None are safe, no one is spared. And when names like Haiyan, Goni, Noru, Lakima, Mawar, or Saola are spoken, they aren't just storms. They're the scars of nature. Typhoon Haiyan, 2013. 315 km/h sustained winds. One of the strongest storms ever recorded on Earth. It wiped entire cities off the map in the Philippines. Typhoon Goni, 2020. Exploded from a low-pressure system to a Category 5 super typhoon in just 54 hours. When it made landfall, it tore through eastern Luzon like a bomb, turning neighborhoods into carnage zones like a nuclear blast had hit. Typhoon Mawar, 2023, and Typhoon Kanun soon after brought unprecedented deluges, dumping thousands of millimeters of rain, crippling transportation, taking down power grids, and forcing millions to evacuate across East Asia. But the biggest threat? These storms are getting smarter and less predictable. Climate change has pushed sea surface temperatures in this region above global averages. That means storms form faster, grow stronger, and stay powerful for longer. Storms that once weakened near landfall now slam into coastlines still roaring at Category 5, bringing devastation on a scale never seen before. Even the most modern cities, Tokyo, Shanghai, Taipei, Seoul, Manila, can't stop nature when it turns violent. The Northwest Pacific isn't just a storm nursery. It's Earth's tropical reactor. And every year, millions of people live in its shadow, on edge, on watch, waiting to hear the next name that nature chooses. From North Carolina to Okinawa, from the Philippines to the Bay of Bengal, every place on this list is a reminder that no matter how powerful we become, humankind is still small in the face of nature's fury. But in those very same places, we also witness resilience, adaptation, and hope. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, so you won't miss the next storm-chasing journey. This is Go Discover, and you've just watched the top 10 places most frequently hit by hurricanes and typhoons on Earth. See you in the next episode, where real stories, scientific facts, and natural disasters are told with the voice of truth.